What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Marvel Roundup. It's been a while. Certainly been a while since we've done one of these, but there's a lot to talk about. Punisher special has its date, and we'll talk about that. There's a lot of exciting things happening with that in terms of how this is going to lead to a brand new day. Holland on Spidey Punisher dynamic, and one thing that Holland, I think I don't know if we've talked about it before, but they mentioned that he did a lot of scouring social medias to see what people were talking about in terms of what they wanted, and he went to Marvel and be like, yo, this is what the people
want. He did the thing that Kevin Feige won't do, basically. He's like, I want to bring you the intel.
Yo, if people say they want chicken, give them chicken. More Spidey Punisher special connections. Trailer was completely redone after leak and passes 1 billion views. Something that someone said wouldn't happen with Avengers Doomsday trailer when it comes out, but I think we've shown that it is quite possible. Depending on how Doomsday displays the future of what they will be presenting, we'll see how many views we get. Sony still says no on Miles Morales. Disney confident in the December 18th non-IMAX strategy for Doomsday. And Wonder Man, guess what? A season 2. And we'll talk about that, because when we were talking about this season of Wonder Man season 2, we had said how this show wasn't really promoted as much as other shows, and then people coming after me talking about, what are you talking about? They have been promoted. Yeah, this is after the fact. This is after they said this was an amazing show. Then you start getting commercials about it, bombardments of wanting people to come see it. That's when you started seeing the commercials and the promotion. But before that, there was nothing. And they dumped it all at once, and they did it in January. But let's start with something else. Punisher Special has a release date, Brian, wasn't it? What's going on there?
It does. So May 12th is when we are going to get the Punisher Special. So let's do a quick sort of math on what we're looking at here. So Daredevil Born Again drops March 24th. We know we're getting 2 episodes in the second week of that, but let's call it, it's going to take a little less than 2 months to cover that season. So guess what? That's probably going to mean the season will end right before Punisher Special hits Disney+. Punisher Special gives you a little bit of breathing room for summer movie season, because we know Spidey's not coming till the end of July, so you get about a 2-month break there, but still pretty close proximity. And we'll get into it, but we're being told there's real connectivity kind of between almost all 3 of these, with Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio saying, Jon Bernthal, this was discussed, it was planned that he would not be in the Daredevil show because of his special, but then there's something going on in the special that's going to take you right into Brand New Day. Remember, they've said you should be able to walk off one set and walk onto the other. So this is in some ways one of the latest grand experiments of mixing high-profile characters on a streamer and television with one of the biggest global characters, maybe the biggest alongside Batman in the genre for a movie. So May 12th is our date. It's been timed, I think, at a shade over an hour. So it is similar to Werewolf by Night. This is not a full-fledged feature film. It is compact. It's called One Last Kill. Has a name to it. As you can see, a poster with sort of an up-close of Bernthal. And among other things, Pablo, is apparently Sadie Sink's first on-screen appearance as Jean Grey is in the Punisher Special. So they really want you to watch that as a...
Interesting.
I mean, with all the hype that's been around, we joked about it, around Sadie Sink's arrival in the MCU and who she played and the G14 classified of it all. Well, they want you to subscribe to Disney Plus and watch the Punisher Special to find out for sure who she's playing, what she's doing, and maybe what her role is in the Spider-Verse going forward.
Yeah. I'm certainly excited to see what this is. The only thing I would say this, and this is just me nitpicking, yo. The Punisher's hair in the first season was done well in that it looked unkept. I don't see the Punisher looking in the mirror and blowing out his hair and making it look all nice and shaped up and stuff like that. It's just, I don't buy it, but whatever. But again, I think this trajectory that they're on leading towards Brand New Day, although Spider-Man, the movie, is something that people are looking forward to because of what happened in No Way Home and how he moves on going forward in Brand New Day. This is adding extra excitement to what we see in Brand New Day. I think this Punisher special, Daredevil, all the connectivity. I'm telling you, man, what's the guy from 40-Year-Old Virgin? Is connection. It's all about connections. And doesn't have to always be the case, but because it is, and how you do it, depending on how you do it, makes it more exciting, makes it more, the curiosity builds up more to find out what happens next. So I think this Punisher special, let's see what they do to get us even more excited for Brand New Day when it comes out.
So this also makes me wonder, this subtitle actually got my attention because I was kind of curious, like, okay, we've seen in the Netflix 2 seasons in some way, and honestly, his involvement in Daredevil season 2 back when on Netflix, the style of the show changed a little bit. If you go back to the Punisher special, I feel like season 2 is a little bit more of almost like a cowboy lone gunslinger, like just with his backdrop, where he's kind of like, as opposed to sort of a pure military setup. I think One Last Kill makes me very curious as to who the target is. Like, is that a target that's going to have, whose elimination would have ramifications that could ripple back to a Kingpin, ripple back to a Valentina, See, that's where I think it's like, you don't even have to build in a ton of plot devices if the character itself you kind of know has linkages elsewhere in the universe. We can kind of imagine that and wait to see what you do with it. So that makes me immediately curious as to, is action that Frank is going to take in this special going to have unintended consequences elsewhere in the universe, be it dealt in Brand New Day or in, as we now know, Daredevil is getting season 3 that's going to supposedly be very different tonally and backdrop wise than season 2. So that in and of itself, when I saw the subtitle, got me sort of intrigued as to what mano a mano battle is he kind of, or crusade is he going on in this one.
Yeah, and One Last Kill, what is that? I mean, obviously he can't go on a killing spree in Brand New Day, right? So what does it mean towards his approach towards dealing with bad guys, right? Does it water does he suddenly a guy that doesn't do that anymore? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what sort of approach he takes in helping Spider-Man and how he approaches dealing with perhaps superpowered beings, enhanced humans, and things of that nature.
Well, I don't think they would ever take that out of his DNA. And I think even that little snippet in the Brand New Day trailer, where I think it's sort of implied he's intending to blow up and destroy who's ever in the tank in front of them, and Spidey's kind of using his webs to keep the gun muzzled effectively. I hope it never lets go of that. I still love his delivery in that phrase of the "you hit them, they get back up. I hit them, they stay down." Like, I hope he never loses that. And in a weird way, like even at the end of season 2 of Daredevil, Matt's defining moment really is that he kind of crosses over, right? Because it's like when Elektra's killed, he gets up, Frank snipes the hand guys on the roof, and Daredevil's like, "Cool, you take them out. I got this guy." He intends to kill him. He throws him off the top of the building. He's not assuming that guy's going to be. Now, we know he's undead, so it takes stick to kind of finish him off. But I mean, Matt basically embraces in that scene Frank's way of life for those 5 minutes. So I kind of hope Frank always brings that to these heroes and kind of keeps them honest in that way of like, kind of like what are you talking about? You're taking the hard way on this, and that makes it interesting. And again, it feeds, we'll get into it, like Holland talking up kind of their relationship and what we should see in Brand New Day. I'm there for it.
What does he say?
So he said, and this was really interesting about both acting and character. He First off, Tom Holland, I think, was because of his long and storied history of spoiler delivery, must have been under a gag order until this trailer dropped. Because immediately the trailer dropped, he gave his first interview about the movie. So they must have said, you can't say nothing until we put this footage out. But what he said was, quote, "I'm so excited for people to see Jon Bernthal as the Punisher in this movie because, he comes from a very different world. He's in the R-rated kind of universe, and we picked him up, plonked him into our world, and he absolutely sings in this movie." But then he says that the relationship they scripted for Peter and Frank is not exactly where they ended up, because he and Bernthal began improvising some of their scenes as they were shooting. And eventually, I guess some of that wound up in the final cut. And so that I thought was pretty interesting, where he said the relationship kind of between him, the two actors, and then the relationship between Spider-Man and Punisher is so funny. It changed a lot and evolved a lot as we were shooting, because John and I would improvise. It started as this relationship of two people that really hate each other. And then through improvisation, it became more of a big brother, little brother rivalry. And it might end as the favorite dynamic I've ever seen with Spider-Man, end quote.
Interesting. We shall see. We shall see. That is certainly has been top of mind when we think about the Punisher in Brand New Day and how they're going to be collaborating and the dynamic of that. So yeah, we'll see what that is all about.
So what's interesting there too, though, is what I'm curious to see is we have seen the Holland Spider-Man set up as Junior in a couple of relationships already, right? Tony Stark brings him into the MCU. He is clearly apprentice to Stark in that moment. I think even in No Way Home, Doctor Strange kind of takes over that role in a certain form. This has to be different, right? Because this is Holland post those events. He's older now. He's more seasoned. He's more heartbroken. So I'm expecting something a little different when he says big brother, little brother for this type of situation. And so I'm curious to see, though, where they took it. I think we won't know until we see it on screen, but if it winds up hitting the way that Holland is pitching to us, I think we again have to give some credit both to the actors, but to our guy, Destin Daniel Cretton, for rolling with it and kind of saying that's not what we originally designed, but this thing you guys are doing is better. And that's what we want to put on screen.
Exciting things, Brian. Exciting things. Do you want to get into the trailer?
Yeah, let's get into the trailer, because when you say exciting things, I mean, I think Spider-Man has reminded all of us that he's still Spider-Man.
1 billion views.
Never been done by a trailer before.
And all that is happening surrounding that is exciting, especially with the Punisher trailer. I can't wait for that trailer, but the Punisher special. We've talked about it in that it's quite possible that Brand New Day may outdo Doomsday, and it'll be interesting to see how close or how not close that is. But what do you think of this number 1 billion views? It definitely says, so like you said, Spider-Man is still Spider-Man. He still demands the eyeballs. What are you thinking with the numbers that you've seen? How do you think this movie will do? And do you do at the box office? Because it's definitely hitting 1 billion. Can it get to No Way Home numbers?
So I think, if I'm laying the odds, to me, 1 billion is minus 800, minus 1,000. It's overwhelming odds that it will cross 1 billion, especially with the global profile of this. And by the way, doesn't have the No Way Home, No China constraint. Remember, they fixed that. So even if that's another 100 million, 125, like Spider-Man does sell over there. So I think that opens up your upside. I think what we're talking about here is the 1.5 number. That to me is the one where you start the betting. That's kind of the rare air of, first Avengers is 1.6. I think, what was it last year? Only one movie, Zootopia 2, crossed 1.5. Even Avatar, Fire and Ash fell just short of 1.5. So 1.5 is the rare air. And I think this movie has a shot which, No Way Home had the advantage of ending 20 years of Spider-Men. And I think in a weird way had a little bit of a disadvantage of it. That was really also, if people remember, that was right about when theaters were reopening in full, that end of 21. So that was kind of the first big event picture. Sorry, Tom Cruise, I know you like to take full credit for this, but No Way Home comes out in December of 21. That's the first movie where everyone came back to theaters that were fully open. So this movie doesn't have that. And it's a crowded marketplace, with Odyssey 2 weeks earlier, but it's not crowded after. And there is room in August for this to run into the start of school alongside the Odyssey as sort of the adult and then kind of family options that you have. And so even without IMAX, I think 1.5 is doable. And the other thing I have to say, it's not a 0, but Born Again Season 2, if it winds up continuing to be as well received as it starts and the audience comes back to Daredevil, if that then leads to, hey, there's hype around the Punisher special, and look, there's Jean Grey, it's not going to hurt this movie if those two things are good and buzzing before you get to the theater for Spider-Man.
It's building. It's only building. I wouldn't say, is it safe to say, is Marvel back, but they're certainly building the building blocks that made them who they are.
Yeah, I can't say they're all the way back. What I would say is this has the look and feel of a situation which, as you say, feels more akin to early days of Infinity Saga, what they got right, especially even that sort of Winter Soldier period where they kind of figured it out, right? Because even the first phase is kind of uneven. But it also feels one of those things of, I don't know why it took y'all 25 years to get these rights things straightened out with these characters, but you guys have been doing this with one hand tied behind your back with the whole Sony versus Marvel, who can appear on television, who can appear on the big screen. It's like, there's a point at which you sort of look, you got to be sitting in a room being like, this is stupid. Like that Spider-Man and Kingpin and Spider-Man and Daredevil can't be on the big screen at the same time. Like, who wrote these rules? Like, let's just make a new contract and make some money. And that's kind of where, and I think like it's one of those things where it took Sony having to have their heads beat in by the failure of their Spider-Villains verse. And it probably took a little bit of humbling on the Marvel side of like, hey, this other stuff we're trying is just not really hitting. We need a surefire win. And this is a surefire win, is taking this character and building a more complete world of superheroes and villains around him. Not the 900 characters we're pitching, the real Spider-Verse that we care about in comics, the New York Spider-Verse that we care. So yeah, this kind of feels like one of those like, yeah, we shouldn't have taken us as long to get here, but now that we are here, we do seem to be in pretty good hands, and that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Segue into Sony saying no.
I said no, hell no.
To Marvel, MCU, Kevin Feige about using Miles. I understand the sentiment because of their success that they've had with Miles Morales on the big screen with the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, and all that stuff that they've done that's been highly successful. So they certainly want to get a little greedy and keep it all to themselves and do something with that, which I think makes a little bit of sense, Brian, because although there is obviously connections to the MCU and all that other stuff, the Miles Morales is sort of a separate thing, kind of, right? What do you think of that perspective that Sony wants to keep it all to themselves and see what they can do themselves before they make or think about even collaborating with the MCU and Kevin Feige and them?
I think it both makes sense and doesn't make sense. What I love about it, though, is the way this story came out. It had every bit the feel of like a Kevin Feige heat check in the boardroom. It was like, because remember, we know there was so much dispute about Brand New Day and what it was supposed to be. We know there's a Tom Rothman Sony iteration which has Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back for this movie, right? We know that. They wanted that. They wanted to take No Way Home, blow that out, make it multiversal, make it huge, That's what they wanted because they saw that $1.92 billion and they were like, we got to have more of that, especially after our other thing face planted. And you got Kevin over here saying, no, man, you ended that movie with that dude sewing his own suit, nobody knowing who he is, and he's back out on the street. You can't go from that to what you're talking about. And I'm telling you, he came. I bet you it was Kevin in this case. I don't always say that, but this has the fingerprints when I see Born Again and I see the Punisher special of him saying, I will get you your event, but here's how we're going to build it. We're going to build it from the streets up. And the characters you want on screen with Spidey are not the Cravens and the Morbius. It's Punisher, it's Kingpin, it's Daredevil. Give me the... And I'm imagining him being like, we're redoing the rights to Daredevil. Got it. Redoing the rights for Kingpin. And he's got Miles like at the bottom of the list where he's like, I got 5 of these. And he's like, we're doing the rewrites for Miles, right? And they're like, then all of a sudden like the sirens go off and the people will come, the guys with the shotguns are like, nope, that's a bridge too far, Kevin. Too much. Heat check. So I love that he asked. But he asked. That's the report is he formally
threw
asked
that one in there
for some kind of Miles Easter egg or inclusion in Brand New Day. And Sony said, not until the third Spider-Verse animated movie is done.
I get that because once you do that, your mind opens up to that possibility. And perhaps, because of how big and the anticipation for that third film, I don't think you water it down so much, but opening that possibility could have an effect. Maybe, I don't know. But I think they've done too well and the anticipation is too high for that to be something people are looking forward to more with regards to Kevin Feige and the MCU dealing with Miles Morales than Sony and what they've done so far. But I can understand the hesitancy and wanting to do that.
So here's the part that I understand is kind of what you said is like when you have something as successful as they've had with the Lord and Miller series, I understand why they're very sensitive to that. What I find interesting as a subplot here is Beyond the Spider-Verse was originally supposed to be out already. So if you think about it, Lord and Miller have on their publicity tour for Project Hail Mary, have done the mea culpa to basically say, like, remember, they basically redesigned the entire movie multiple times. And as a result, that's been a big part of why it's taking so long to get the third movie made. And so there's a world where Beyond the Spider-Verse would already be out. And I would love to know what the answer to that. Would they have given Kevin the permission to introduce Miles in Brand New Day if, in fact, the animated trilogy was complete? So I kind of look at the like what if of whatever Lord and Miller were doing as sort of maybe a little bit of a factor here. The part that I disagree with Sony on is let's not act like animated and live action versions of characters can't coexist to some degree, in the sense of DC obviously had a very proud animated tradition for a number of years. It never stopped them from having a live action Batman, Superman character on screen at the same time. I get it. Those were TV shows. They weren't Oscar winning animated films. But for somebody as high profile as Miles Morales, I kind of feel like I would trust the audience that they could enjoy his role as sort of an on-ramp live-action character into whatever Tom Holland was doing, and still enjoy the independence and the animation of what Lord and Miller were doing at the same time. I think there's room for both if they had wanted to do it.
I think where the issue lies perhaps is what story do they tell? I think that becomes a bit more complicated, and they sort of want first say as to what that is, how that's done, rather than do something that, I don't know, that's underwhelming. That's a tough thing because with the Spider-Verse, you have the origin, you have this next phase. And like when you do Miles Morales, what do you do? Live action origin again? How does that, I mean, there's certainly some excitement because it's never been done before. And you're going to want to see the portrayal of whomever the actor they choose to do this. There's a lot of things to look forward to, but what story do they tell? Because they can't allow that to fall flat.
I think they also can't simply remake the Lord and Miller animated show. That's the other thing I think will be challenging, is I think that is effectively Miles's origin. in a multiversal way. And it's like, I think you have to at least, if you simply remake that, then you're just doing what Disney is doing with Moana and, Little Mermaid and all those movies. And it's like, that's, I don't think what you want to do with Miles Morales. I do think if I was reading between the lines, I think there's a valid conversation on the Sony side of the table of, do we actually want Miles to be in the exact same universe as Tom Holland's Peter Parker? Do we want that? Because if you introduce him in that way, then he is that. He is forever from that world. Or, I could see as an executive saying to Kevin, hey, you're about to reset this whole thing with Secret Wars anyway. Why don't we just wait and see what the board looks like and maybe give Miles his own universe and not be constrained by anything that Tom Holland is doing or will do in his next. I actually could see the creative argument for that more than the audiences won't be able to process live action Miles and animated Miles together. I don't totally buy it. But I think it's interesting that Kevin asked for it because it meant that he had an idea. He had an idea for where he thought a Miles Morales would fit in the Tom Holland Spider-Man universe. That has me curious what that was.
Absolutely. It's all about connections. Disney is confident in December 18 non-IMAX strategy for Doomsday. They're not moving the date, apparently. You still think they will?
I still think there's a chance. I don't know if you saw Jumanji already moved. Jumanji was supposed to come out, I think, around the same week. Actually, it was December 18th, and they moved back. They're now in the Christmas week. So they backed up.
Hells yeah.
Now, Jumanji's done this before. I think the last one that The Rock was in came out in the same year as an Avatar movie or No Way Home. It was one of those years. Came out like a week or two after. Made $800 million. Did really well as sort of like a kid-friendly alternative to what else was out there. I think this is going to be a tougher assignment just because you got two behemoth movies that people will be going to see at the same time. But I still think there's a chance. But here's what I thought. This report that came out that Disney was confident that between sort of Dolby screens and other large formats that they were fine with not having IMAX screens and Dune 3 having all the IMAX screens. The article I saw referenced a benchmark for Doomsday of $1 billion. To which I said, if that's your benchmark, I'm not here for that at all. Come on, man. If this thing does 1 to like 1.1, that is a massive disappointment. Why are you saying if you're confident in your strategy to deliver $1 billion for an Avengers movie, like what year are we in? Like you should be telling me about your confidence in the strategy to deliver it close to 2. That's the number. Like 1.5 to 2 is where you should be starting that conversation.
But
1 is like one is like what a bad Avengers movie does
in hopes of 2. But 1 is like,
I found it hard to believe that's really their expectation. I'm like, really? You're going to call this a win if you do $1.01 billion? There's no way.
But that shows a lack of confidence. That absolutely shows a lack of confidence.
That's why I was like, they're confident, not confident. I'm like, they're confident in a number that I would consider to be a major disappointment if that's where we end up.
And if you talk to most people, the expectation is much higher than just 1 billion.
If Avengers Doomsday winds up at like a 1.01 billion, where's Mr. T?
Prediction?
That's not going to make the top 5 grossing movies of this year, in my opinion. If it's literally just 1 billion, because I think Spider-Man absolutely would be higher than that. I think Odyssey would be higher than that. Super Mario Galaxy, Michael. I mean, that's our big call, but I think definitely could be higher than that. Then you have like Toy Story, Minions, even Dune 3 itself probably has an outside shot at $1 billion. Like, if you're telling me that's the benchmark for success for an Avengers movie, I'm very suspicious and very, very, very angry at that person. Be like, come on, man, aim higher. Your last one did almost 3.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay with 1?
And could reach that number after they release it in September again.
It probably will. Probably will retake the title from Avatar. And it's like, you're telling me you're going to be okay with 1?
Oh, that is whack.
By the way, one other thing on the Spider-Man trailer, I got to give it some shouts here. So we did get a confirmation that the thing that leaked in December was real. That leaked trailer was, in fact, the original intended teaser for this movie. And because of the leak, they completely redid it to the tune of the most watched trailer of all time. But they said, everyone, quote, this is a quote about the insiders about the trailer. Everyone voluntarily worked overtime, weekends reduced by half. Everyone was constantly synchronizing the progress. And they went down to the wire with shots being adjusted and refined up to the day before it went online. To defeat a leak, they wound up with the most watched trailer in movie history.
There are high expectations for this movie. And the fact that they were working overtime to make sure that they gave us a trailer that has now reached over 1 billion views says something to their confidence, to their dedication, and their belief in Destin Daniel Cretton's ability to make this different. I think says a lot, and it's going to be interesting. That box office is going to be very interesting, especially that first weekend.
I'm fascinated with the buzz that this trailer has gotten, what we know about the characters, sort of how beloved the character remains kind of worldwide. And, got to toss this in there, the rumors about not just Sadie Sink, but these mutant connections, these little mutant Easter eggs that they've dropped dating back to Miss Marvel and so forth along the way. There continues to be smoke that Jean Grey is not the only high-profile mutant that's in Brand New Day. And so if that movie is actually more the on-ramp to X-Men than Doomsday and Secret Wars proved to be, I think that's also an interesting subplot here. If this movie winds up being that good, that will be a win for Kevin and a win for Disney as a entry point, if that's true. But we continue to hear that it's not just Jean who at least makes some kind of appearance in this film. Speaking of Destin Daniel Cretton,
Wonder Man. Yes, is back for another season. Listen, man, I gotta say, again, when we talked about this previously and we talked about how this show wasn't promoted the way it has been received, it wasn't promoted with the same belief and confidence that, let's say, a WandaVision, or even, dare I say, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was promoted. There are people out there that are saying they were promoted just as much as those. Get out of here. You cannot say that with confidence. You just can't. You just can't. You're only seeing the reception to what Wonder Man has gotten from the people who have seen it and have praised it. That's when you've seen the promotion. But before that, I'm pretty sure, Brian, you have these moments where it was almost going to be canceled as a write-off.
That's not rumor. That's the showrunner. So Andrew Guest, who's the co-showrunner with Destin Daniel Cretton, said flat out that they screened a rough cut of the first 2 episodes back in 2022, people. This is how long this has been gestating. The initial rough cut was not well received. And when the writer's strike happened in 2023, Disney considered writing the entire series off for tax purposes. That happened.
So don't come down here with your anger, trying to prove something to yourself.
No, the promotion of this show was comparable to what? Echo, comparable to Ironheart, comparable to Eyes of Wakanda. It's like those shows are in a certain category, and it's not a category that you generally wanted to be in at Marvel or Disney Plus. But this show defied the expectations. And as Pablo said very rightly, once it became clear there was some buzz, both among critics and audiences, they ramped up the awareness push for this. I mean, in some ways, this wasn't quite the same with Andor, but there was a little similarity to Andor in the sense of like, Andor versus Obi-Wan on the way in. Where was Disney's attention, right? It was clearly more on Obi-Wan for justifiable reasons. Once Andor arrived and the response was what it was, what did you see? Disney was putting this on network TV trying to get people to watch it, right? That wasn't part of the plan. It was the Joker, part of the plan. It wasn't part of the plan. They did that because of the reaction to this. And so Wonder Man getting a season 2 was not part of the plan. Like, how many Marvel shows have gotten a season 2? Loki. 1.
Thank you.
1. This is going to be the second of those. So, and I'm not, that's of their originals, right? Daredevil is kind of its own thing. That came over with multiple. I'm not talking about something that originated elsewhere that they took to multiple seasons. I'm talking about something that originated in the Disney Plus pipeline, the big thing they made a big deal about coming off of COVID. Loki is the only show that was rewarded with a second season. Until that's on merit. That's it. This literally is on merit. And you could argue it's merit plus because it probably might have been harder to get this thing out of the gates than almost any other show. But it's on merit. And it's another win in the Marvel universe, as we said, for Destin Cretton and his, we'll see what he can do outside the universe, but inside the universe, I mean, he is definitely, he's on the podium. If you say the Russos probably still hold the top spot on the podium, he's probably moving into the second spot on the podium right now. And he's challenging for that top spot, depending on how Spider-Man goes and if he gets an Avengers role. So I think what's your reaction, though, to now knowing you're going to get a second season? Like, is that something you will file away and say, like, I can't, can't wait to see it? Are you kind of curious and feeling like, did this show need a second season? Like, what's your sort of fans' reaction to knowing you're getting more of this?
2 things. 1, I don't know if it needed a second season, but I'm glad they're doing it. And 2, if we thought they weren't promoting it this time, if you think they're not going to do the treatment that they're doing for these other shows that they have confidence in releasing it week to week, because we got this all in one bunch, like Echo, like Ironheart, like all the ones that they didn't believe in. So, again, that's what I'm looking to see, how they treat this going forward. It's certainly going to be different. We're gonna don't know the dates of when this comes out. It's not going to release January 3rd or 4th or anything like that.
Was it the second week of January, I think?
Tell me what show that people are looking forward to gets released in January.
Or movie. It's called Dumpuary, people. That's what the month is called. It's called that for a reason.
So again, I don't want to hear this. They do. It's like, yo, I'm sorry, yo, but you're delusional. You're delusional if you believe that Wonder Man was treated with the same sort of excitement and confidence that this was something that people were waiting for. Nobody was looking forward to seeing that. We were wondering why.
Well, we were joking about where was the trailer. We were joking about that. Basically, we knew this still existed, but they basically wouldn't acknowledge its existence for the longest time leading up to it. Yeah. Now, as far as the release style, listen, I hope they don't change that because I thought it was very effective with 30 minutes, 6 episodes. That's not how I wouldn't tell them, like, do not make it. Even if you think it's the best thing you ever made, season 2, don't make it 1 a week. Give it same way, all 6, 30 minutes each. I guarantee you people are going to enjoy it more.
What they say now, keep that same energy. But I'm happy for Yahya. He's on a tear, and he certainly deserves the accolade. And I hope we see him in other stuff as well. I'm pretty sure we're looking forward to that Man on Fire Netflix. When does that come out?
April 30th. It's not that far off. I'll look it up while you're talking here.
So, yeah, man.
April 30th. Man on Fire. Yeah.
Good for him and good for them to recognize. Hopefully, Destin Daniel Cretton is not too high up on the totem pole that this is beneath him for him to do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so that I thought was important. They announced that Cretton and Andrew Guest are returning as the showrunners. Even Loki changed its showrunner between season 1 and season 2. Now we got 2 good seasons, but they brought in some WandaVision folks to run the second season. So I think it's actually the opposite of what you're saying. I think this is kind of his baby. And so those two guys are like, we don't want anyone else running this. Like, this is the formula. It's us two up top, and it's Yaya and Ben Kingsley, kind of our two guys, are sort of the buddies below. And I think that's actually unusual. That's, again, they talk about only one other show was renewed. No show has been renewed with the same people involved in leadership.
So yeah, that's been our Marvel Roundup show. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of everything we discussed with Punisher, Spidey, Miles.
Spidey's going to set a hell of a bar for Matt Reeves to go after with Batman next year. I know we don't think of it that way, but like, those are the two 1A characters globally. And like, if Spidey really, with this connectivity and this building blocks and its huge box office, but we have this anticipation, and we're being told, by Colin Farrell, Batman 2 is a masterwork. It's like, let's see who can duke this out and, kind of be the more buzzy and the more lasting film in this iteration.
Yeah. Definitely. I was thinking about the same thing, that like, if Spider-Man does what he needs to do, DC has to, I'm pretty sure Edison has to be like, yo, we got Batman. We gotta pull off something similar. Cause you got Spider-Man Brand New Day. You got these guys, Sony, with their Miles Morales. You got Batman. You just don't have Batman. You have the history of Batman. You have all these iterations of Batman. You have so much that you can do. You can't afford to be stingy with it right now. Even though, you got Matt Reeves and you're focused on what that's going to be able to do. But you got to be able to have confidence in putting out something else. And it's not with James Gunn.
And as we say, like, even Marvel knows this. It's like, Fantastic Four, the OGs, but like, those characters just don't have the same following. It's like, and we know Disney did or Marvel did such a masterful job of making people care about the Avengers in a way that historically they were not viewed as sort of A-list characters before Robert Downey's arrival and what they did with the movies. But I mean, on the DC side, like, Batman's their guy. I mean, that's the guy with his entire universe and his entire rogues. Like, there's no other character like that. And so it's like, you're not playing for 500 million and 600 million with Batman. You are playing for awards, right? We talk about the Jokers, but 3 times you've had either an Oscar nomination or a win for that character from his world. Playing for awards, you're playing for records. You're playing for lasting impact in these movies and huge money. So yeah, no excuse. That would be my message if I'm David Ellison. There's no, like, if Spider-Man does this, right, and they're linking in Punisher and they're like all this stuff, and it does like 1.6. Let's put that number out there. After the last one did 1.9. If I'm Ellison, I'm just putting that number up on the board and be like, no excuse why our guy can't do those kind of numbers.
Absolutely. I'm there with him, chanting behind him. I'm like, yes, we can. Yes, we can. So yeah, let us know in the comment section below. Remember to hit that like and subscribe. Share with your friends. And if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first on the Nerd Gen Report.